Hi.
Mr. President, hi, good to see you
Good
again.
to see you
How
too.
are you?
Thanks
nice
so
to
much.
see you. Thank you. How are you?
Thank you for coming.
Of course,
Well,
of course.
thank you so much.
At a tense time, of course,
Yes,
always for
not
your
simple.
country.
Yeah.
And the reason we wanted to meet at this point, of course, is because now they're hitting the heart of your city, the headquarters, the government
Yeah.
building. Can you talk us through what happened there?
Yeah, we had a very tough night. Maybe, as always, I can say, but those night was difficult because it was more than 800 shaheeds. Yes, I think 810, something like this. And plus we had, I think, about 15 missiles. Yes, especially this time at the night, and some ballistic. And one missile was they attacked government building, especially this. You see the stages, by missile, and God bless, if I can say this way, God bless that this missile they attacked and missile didn't explode. Because if it could explode, I mean really, because I think that the half of the building will not be destroyed.
Did you have your teams there in there?
Yeah, but no. I mean that's it was in the night, and it's especially its ministry, the rooms of Ministry of Economy and Ministry of Finance, the block of Prime Minister anyway, and the whole of diplomatic meetings also there. Everything was destroyed by missile.
What message do you think they're sending when they do that?
You know that they want to continue the war, and that's why they postponed, these meetings of decisions and about ceasefire. And it's not about ceasefire in any way. Yes, I don't know what is in their heads. It's difficult to understand, but we have to recognize that they don't want peace. It's understandable.
Should we
we
head
can.
in? Yeah.
Everything is close. You see that this is the governmental block, so everything is very close. Parliament, 1 minute to governmental, and then we have also my office here. It's about 3-5 minutes by foot.
Yes, and I mean this is the most secure area in the city,
Yes,
frankly.
of course, and Kyiv is the most secure. Of course, we wanted very much Patriot systems for all the cities, but we don't have it, and so the Patriot system is not in the governmental block, of course,
Yeah.
but it's in the city, in Kyiv, and of course, even with these systems, because it's not enough, it's a very small number here, and small number, I mean, it's not enough in Ukraine.
Yes.
Comparing with other countries, for today, maybe it's not a small number between us. I can't say how many we have, but we can't compare with other countries because we are in the war.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. In any way, so
I mean, despite Kyiv being so secure, the fact that they can launch this kind of attack, 800 drones across the country.
you can't have enough. I mean, the systems to block 800 drones. I mean, so we have to have all this, air defense, what we have in the country, to bring to one place. But it's unbelievable how to destroy them. And our guys, our air forces, they really with air defense guys and mobile groups, and so it's multi-system.
Yes.
And also jets and also drones, interceptors.
Yes.
It's like kamikaze drones, and also air defense systems. So all these worked against 810, and those days they destroyed 700. And it's a big number. You can compare now with the Poland, for example. It's not, I mean, this is not messages to Polish, our friends. They are not in the war. That's why it's understandable that they are not ready for such things. But even if you compare 810 and we destroyed more than 700, and they had, for example, they had 19 drones, and they destroyed 4. So they didn't have missiles and didn't have ballistic and etc. And of course, they can't, save people if they will have massive attack.
I mean, do you feel that they can learn lessons? You know, we're seeing those sorts of incursions in Poland, in Romania. Lessons from the way that you are dealing with this war?
You know, we can teach, we can train. They are our partner. They helped us a lot from the very beginning of the war, especially to our people who went abroad in first days, and they hosted them and helped children and women. First of all, that's why we're very thankful. And I had a conversation with Donald Tusk, his prime minister of Poland, those days when they've been attacked. I said that to our guys, we are ready to train your soldiers, your forces. They really need it. And it's not about only Poland. I mean, this from the very beginning of this war, we moved different our soldiers to train in Baltic countries, Nordic, UK, in Poland, I mean abroad, United States also. Then in the next period of this war, it was next year, after first year of invasion, next year we understood that we can't train our people there because the war changed, and we begin retrained. When they came back, we began retrain here. And now, when we are after almost 4 years, 3.5 of this war, we don't move our forces somewhere. We don't move our soldiers, and we are now inviting, oppositely, we're inviting officers and representatives from other countries to learn here.
Are they listening? Are they coming?
They're listening. Some of them coming. Yeah, they have to understand, because we studied these during the war. Nobody knew what is it, and it's a new war, very technological war. You know, for example, drones. Now, the generation of drones. Now we speak about generation, not about number.
Yes.
Yes. Now the generation of drones changes each 3 months. So you can't even, just buy something.
It can change in the next 3 months.
You need only, if you're buying, for example, from our company, I mean, we don't sell it during the war, but if even you buy, you have to have a contact links with the company, and they have to renovate.
So how do you think you can help Europe with their, industry, tech industry, and especially when it comes to drones and dealing with their own systems?
So I think that we are in the best shape technologically what can be for today. Russians learn from us. We learn something from Russians today. And we try to be quicker than they, because we don't have such bureaucracy like they have, but really they learn very quick. So we can be very helpful to all the world, because first of all we are open for Europe with all these technologies, because we are partners, strategic partners, and that's why. And we need, during the war, we need financing. They can't have this technological knowledge from Russia. But I think that for today, such level of knowledge has only Ukraine and Russia. They are our enemies, real enemies, but we have to recognize, that they learn quick. Because of the war, not because they are smart and Europeans not, of course not, but because they're in the war, that's why they need to move quickly. And we move quicker than Russians, because we are smaller.
Yeah.
And that's why, of course, it's very helpful. So now technologies really between us quicker than decisions of European partners to finance. And this is the problem, I think so. We can be 2-3 times quicker and bigger.
Is that frustrating, because you
Yes.
know that you can move quick and they're moving slow?
This is where we are. what can I say? I mean,
Mr. President, we can talk about all of your frustrations, because, as you know, President Trump is also coming to the UK
Yes.
on Wednesday.
Yes.
So it'll be good to know what your clear message to him is for that, and European leaders
First of all, it's great that it will be such important meeting, and the visit of the President of the United States is coming to to the UK. I think this is important because all what our country can do. We worked only on the unity between Europe and the United States.
Yes.
Because I think this is crucial. Because did you see what's going on in Shanghai?
Yeah.
What was there? How many allies? Not our, and not UK. And I mean this, there are some countries who came, of course, I mean they were independent and it doesn't mean that they are allies of Russia.
Yes.
But in any way, we see dividing world. And I'm not, for example, about Azerbaijan. I know President Aliyev, he has sovereign people, sovereign country. It's very understandable that we speak about a little bit other countries, very big countries like China, like military countries like North Korea, like Russia, like Iran, and some others. Yes, the question is how to work, not to have too much, big allies, which want to build their world. Yes, and that's why it's so important not to lose the unity between UK and Europe. That's why the visit is important.
Yes.
And of course I count on Keir dialogue and also His Majesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I know that there is a big respect to His Majesty and from the United States side and to government, to UK. I know it. And of course we count on support, and I understand that it's important bilateral relation between the UK and the United States, but I hope that in their relations part, a little bit of their time will be about Ukraine, about security, because in any way global security depends on the security in Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's begin. But yes, I'd like to talk about all of those issues with you because they are important. Mr. President, it's good to see you. A lot has happened since we last met. We met each other less than 24 hours after that blow-up at the White House. And of course, since then, we've had the meeting in Alaska between President Trump and Vladimir Putin, which was not just a meeting, but they traveled in the car together as well. And then we've had endless conversations around sanctions and security guarantees. I wanted to ask you, how are you?
Well, indeed, a lot has happened. The moods are changing slightly in Europe and the US. Overall, I am glad that all the Russian advances, all their attack missions, and there have been 3, and they're planning 2 more. I mean, heavy assault campaigns. 3 of their last missions collapsed. And I think it's an important signal. First of all, this is something I told Europeans, and the same I raised in the White House when I met President Trump. I told him the Russians will be unable to take our east, and when they say that they can occupy the city of Sumy, all that is lies and manipulation, and we can show this and prove this. And indeed, that's what we saw. They lost 3 campaigns because there are lots of losses among personnel, and they lost a lot of equipment. Now, they are struggling. We hear them. The morale of their soldiers is very low. And, there are no expectations around this, because we knew all along they will not survive. We just didn't know when this happens, but now we know. All we need to do is to hold our morale, support our soldiers, help our soldiers with weapons as well as funds, because all the funds we spend on radio warfare equipment and the drones. We need to support Ukrainian soldiers, and then we will survive 2 more assaults from the Russians. Now, I'm convinced about now what happened in Alaska and after Alaska. Honestly, this is not helping us. We unfortunately, well, see that. We hope that President Trump will agree on ceasefire. We are ready for ceasefire, and not that we are asking for meetings. We just think that any adequate person and leader will want to stop the war, but it's not possible unless the leaders meet. However, no meetings so far have brought us any closer to the end.
There's a couple of things to unpack there. You said that you knew that this would happen in terms of Russia not wanting to come and take these talks seriously. And it was only a matter of time before that happens, including the morale of their soldiers. Do you, on some level, feel vindicated because you had warned about this?
Several times during the war, we sent specific signals to our partners. This was during Mr. Biden's administration, now during Trump's presidency. The thing is about certain decisions, slow decisions. There is skepticism in some countries, and both in Europe and the US. We trust each other, and our reconnaissance works well with each other. But there is still has some skepticism. But still, verifications and checks takes a long time, and that's why it takes a long time to build the defense lines. And I primarily mean air defenses, the drone defense line. And it's important to not lose time. And as I spoke to you earlier, when you use drones today, you can build radio defenses, but 4 or 5 months later they have jet drones and they can go around it. Now they use AI. This will complicate the work for our soldiers on the battlefield even further. Therefore, decisions are to be made quicker. You need to trust Ukraine from the start. We never let down our partners, and we very much hope that they will not let us down. So things need to speed up. We mustn't drag out diplomatic steps for months or even years. It's a different story. You can phone. It's no longer, messengers on horses. It's a different...
Are you worried, though, that your partners are going to let you down?
I'm worried about Ukraine. I'm worried about our people. We are fighting the country that is 40 times more than us. It's a nuclear state. And they have influential financial capabilities. I'm worried about Ukraine, but not our strength. You see, it's not like we have a bag or sack from which we can take billions. We have to count and account for every penny, and we measure everything. We have certain expectations, and therefore every day is like a mathematical program. You realize that every day costs something. It costs money, people, drones. We can't use more because it's too expensive. Therefore, we have to ration it and husband it over several days, for example, because we can't use air defense systems, for example, at liberty, because we have to be frugal about it, you know. We find ourselves in different conditions. Therefore, I'm concerned over Ukraine, that we have everything that we need and we have enough of it.
Well, since that Alaska summit that we've just spoken about on August the 15th, Vladimir Putin has escalated the war on Ukraine. I'm just going to talk through some of the drone attacks. On the 19th of August, Russia launched 270 drones and 10 missiles. Between the 27th and 28th of August, Russia launched 598 drones and 31 missiles. On the 7th of September, more than, we've spoken about this, 800 drones and 13 missiles were fired across cities, including the main government building that we looked at earlier. Do you believe that meeting in Alaska was a mistake?
I think it gave a lot to Putin, and I believe if it was a trilateral meeting, we would have some result, because Putin wanted to meet the President of the United States, Trump. He wanted to escape from political isolation, and I believe he should have paid more. He should have received a setback in this war and stop. But instead, he received de-isolation. He got photos with President Trump. He received a public dialogue. And I think this opens the doors for Putin into some other summits and formats, because that's how it is, and we see that, we're observing this, and I don't think he paid anything for it. But he should pay, firstly, because he started the war, and secondly, because він намагається знайти спосіб вийти з ізоляції. Therefore, it's very important not to give Putin this space, because otherwise he won't feel compelled that he has to stop the war. Because why? I mean, if he's fighting, if he's waging the war, and everyone is trying to stop him by arguing, by asking him, but instead, force should be used. He understands force. That's his language. That's the language he understands. He doesn't speak many languages, but that's the language of force he understands, just like Russian, you know, his mother tongue. And we ask very much our countries, European and US countries, to do that, to show that. Yes, they take steps, such as sanctions, for example, but more needs to be done, quicker.
Do you think that Vladimir Putin is trying to manipulate and trick Donald Trump?
He definitely wants to trick the US. He's doing everything he can to avoid sanctions, to prevent US and Trump from putting sanctions on him. I think they have prepared the sanctions already, and if you keep postponing applying sanctions any further, then the Russians will be better prepared, and then there will be less damage done. even though they are afraid of the sanctions right now. Now, if the sanctions are total, then they won't be able to further develop their missile building and produce weapons, because they will lack components domestically. But you need to work on this daily. A large group of people needs to do this worldwide. We often come up with proposals for sanctions, but that's not enough. We also need weapons that need to become available to Ukraine. I thank the US for allowing us to buy certain weapons through some programs, but not all weapons are available. I understand why, because America thinks that long-range weapons will trigger some reactions on the Russian side and escalate things, but I'm sure only strong pressure on Russia will work.
I want to talk about sanctions in a moment, and whether Ukraine can go on the offense. But you talked about potential trilateral summit. Donald Trump has spoken about them. Are you ready to meet Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin without any conditions?
Yes. President Trump offered me a bilateral meeting first and then trilateral. He mentioned this in Washington. He said, let's work in this format. Because he said, I want you to have an exchange of opinion in bilateral format. And then we have a trilateral meeting. I said, I support any format suggested by the US. The way I see it, the format that the US is proposing and that Ukraine is supporting, and if Russia is not supporting it, then the US can take strong steps toward Putin. In other words, both sanctions and the weapons. Therefore, I said, without any conditions, I said I support both bilateral and trilateral.
So no conditions. You're willing to meet Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump for a trilateral?
So I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to meet with President Trump and Putin, trilaterally or bilateral. Again, just repeating. Yes, not too much formats as you see, but I'm ready to meet without any kind of conditions.
Are you willing to go to Moscow to do that? Because that is something that Vladimir Putin has suggested.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's not conditions. It's the situation. Russia attacked us. I can't go to the country when this country, this city, Moscow, they're attacking us. So it can't be so under missiles to go to their capital. It can't be so, but we can meet in any other country. There are a lot of propositions on the table. With some of them, Americans are okay, and Europeans and me, of course. So, but I think that the question is now addressed to Russia. They didn't answer.
So why do you think he's suggesting Moscow as a place for you to come and meet him?
Because he understands that I will simply not go. He always suggests something that makes it impossible for us to agree on, so that it looks to everyone else that it's not Putin who is not willing to end the war and cancel the meeting, but someone else. By the way, he's not very good at it. He played with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, other formats. He was claiming my illegitimacy, and he's got other reasons in order to put off the meeting. But can you see what's happening with this? With putting off the meeting, the sanctions are put off. Now, when sanctions are put off, his military production is growing. And at the same time, diplomatic isolation is disappearing for Putin. And so, little by little, people sort of forgive him for this war.
I want to quote Donald Trump, who said, NATO's commitment to win has been far less than 100%. And the purchase of Russian oil by some has been shocking. It greatly weakens your negotiating position and bargaining power over Russia. I'm ready to go, he means imposing sanctions. When you are, just say when. Do you agree with him?
I believe that the US is strong enough to take decisions of their own. I believe Donald Trump can give us air defense systems in quantity, and US has enough. I'm sure US can apply enough sanctions in order to hurt the Russian economy, plus Donald Trump has enough force to make Putin afraid of him. Europe, in this case, should simply be in alliance with the US, and of course it is big help for Americans to put pressure on Putin. But we need to understand that we just can't wait for all European countries to stop relations with Russia, whether it's oil or gas. So in this, he is right. Europe should stop purchasing fuel and gas. But we shouldn't wait. I disagree with that. I think the US is strong enough on its own. And Europe, I mean, it's many different countries. It's the EU countries, other European nations outside EU, and each country has its own bureaucracy, decision-making protocols, etc. Whereas US is just one country with one vertical, system. They can make this happen quicker. Besides, Europe has already introduced 18 sanction packages against Russia. And all that's lacking now is a strong sanction package from the US.
But why is Europe purchasing Russian oil and gas? Because we know that is also contributing in keeping the Russian economy afloat.
Why they buy this? Because the infrastructure for a long time depended on the Russian gas and oil supplies. The largest supplies came through Ukraine. It's happened, just happened so. Everyone lived on one continent. They shared the same continent after World War II. And people started to build neighborhood relations without the war, and I think that's what civilization all about. Lots of gas, lots of oil in Russia, huge production, and all European infrastructure was aligned to that. And so, and when you are dependent on the Russian oil needle, from some point Russia started to use this as a leverage, as a lever of pressure. And they were putting pressure both on Ukraine and other European countries, perhaps to a lesser degree than Ukraine. But Ukraine was for a long time building good relations with Russia in the past. Now Ukraine cut their consumption by 80%. Russian gas and oil is down by 80% just during the war. And Ukraine's contribution to that is great. And of course the Russian aggression played a major role. However, Hungarians and Slovaks and some other European countries are still receiving Russian oil and gas. And of course, Trump can see that. And he wants Europe to put sanctions on third countries too, through which trade is going.
So, but should they be? I mean, Mr. President, what is happening here? You know, on the one hand, within the EU, we know that Hungary and Slovakia are the largest importers of Russian oil. Belgium and France among the biggest importers of gas. President Trump is saying, enough, stop buying Russian oil and gas, and then I will impose further sanctions. Is this Donald Trump calling Europe's bluff and saying, take action and I'll do it? Or is this President Trump sort of being reluctant to impose the sanctions?
Look, there are many different reasons. First, Trump says, if you're ready to be tough on Russia, in that case, be tough on all other countries who are trading with them. And he means, of course, China and India. Second, he understands Europe and their unity, economic unity, is a very difficult process due to domestic policies within the EU, and there are 27 of them, you know. Therefore, he realizes it's not easy. And it is a complex issue. Europe says, but look, we already cut down by 80%. Now it's your move. You put more sanctions on the Russians. But President Trump, I think, believes that if he were to apply all strong sanctions, he will close diplomacy with Russians. That's how I see it. Therefore, I believe that all countries need to stop thinking about themselves and their future relations with Russia, but instead think more about Ukraine, because it's today and now. And every day of their trade costs many, many lives of our citizens. And this is very dangerous. And to be frank with you, dishonest.
You talked earlier there about, you know, the Chinese, Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, meeting with Vladimir Putin, this show of strength, the shifting of the world order. You even talked about the alliances that they're building, and they showed a level of unity for the war in Ukraine, for Russia to continue its war on Ukraine. We know that President Trump has talked about ratcheting up the pressure on China, imposing 50 to 100% tariffs on China. Is it now time for Europeans to put that pressure on the Chinese?
Generally, the issue of China and India and the fuel that they are buying from Russia, you know, some European countries have strong relations with China and others have the same with India. Therefore, some of them don't want to upset relations with India and lose money, while other European countries don't want to have China as enemy. That's exactly what's happening. And here, China is earning a lot because they're buying energy resources from Russia cheap, seeing that there is no united position in Europe against China because they all have their own interests, while President Trump wants the entire Europe to get united and put strong sanctions against both India and China. And then he will be able to make his move, take his steps. But so far, from all this, only Russians are winning.
Well, I guess the Americans are also saying, why should we be the ones imposing tough sanctions on the Indians, on the Chinese, when Europe carries on and continues to buy Russian oil and gas? Because he is saying this is predominantly Europe's war.
Well, first of all, in any case, the US is an alternative to energy resources on the European territory. Therefore, US economy, in my opinion, and generally people, should not ask or question why we put sanctions on a particular country, or for example, Russian energy sector, because American energy resources are entering Europe. And we, Ukraine, are supporting this. And in Europe, most countries support this. And who's earning from this? The US. Which means Europe is getting more independent from Russia, and which is true, they will not be able to put pressure, plus US is selling their resources to Europe. So therefore, I don't quite understand their question from the US. Why should we put sanctions on the Russians? They are selling. Their economy is winning, benefiting. In Ukraine, we have always been saying and supporting the idea that the US energy companies should enter European countries, and we are ready to serve as a conduit. We have a very good energy network, energy system, and we are ready to become partners here. Just like we suggested to Canadians, Norwegians, they can also come to Ukrainian market and use our energy sector for that.
President, we've seen Russian drone incursions into Polish airspace. They've also entered Romanian airspace. What message do you think Vladimir Putin is sending to the Europeans? Is he telling them, don't sell your air defenses to Ukraine because you might need them yourself?
He's testing NATO. He's want to see what NATO's ready for, what they're capable of, both diplomatically and politically, and how the local population will respond to this. The people, I mean, rank and file people, of course, just like everywhere, they're afraid of the war, they don't want to have the war, they are scared to lose their houses, their children, so it's a natural reaction. They saw the NATO's response, their reaction, and now NATO plans currently envisage strengthening the eastern border. Also, in my opinion, the other message they are sending, and I mentioned this earlier, the message is, don't you dare to give Ukraine additional air defense systems, because you might need them yourself. I'm not sure whether this worked, whether this plan Putin succeeded. I can tell you in October, because if we fail to receive, for some reasons, air defense systems that we are expecting right now in October, if they don't arrive, well, then his plan has worked. If they do arrive, well, then it didn't.
Well, President, how are things holding up on the front line at the moment?
Just like I said, in my opinion, we made the right steps at the right time. We disrupted 2 assaults of the Russians, and in a couple of days we'll understand, we'll have more figures, and I think they have sustained tremendous losses. In a couple of days, I will speak about that. Now they are preparing 2 more assaults this autumn. I believe that the Russians' plans went much worse than they planned and much worse than Putin was informed. I don't think Putin is aware of that. I don't think he doesn't realize that, but he received some reports, and at some point he will see that.
President, I've got about 5 minutes left. I just want to ask you about a couple of things. Security guarantees. What's needed? Do you need European boots on the ground? And what has been agreed so far? Because some European countries are saying we're willing to send troops. Vladimir Putin is saying that's a red line, that they will, be targeted if they're there. And the Americans say unlikely to send their troops on the ground.
Regarding security guarantees, well, at least we now have on paper, and they're almost ready, so that's a good advance. There are certain things that still need to be worked out, and we need to get better understanding and clearer position of the US. We already have their commitment to support guarantees and participate, but there are still a few things that haven't been worked out yet. We have understanding regarding the number of countries. 26 countries have so far agreed to give security guarantees, both on land, on the sea and in the air. And we have all this on paper, we see the quantity, we're still arguing, discussing this, but it's a natural dialogue among partners. Now, what's very important is to support Ukrainian army, just like Ukraine is requesting. And I'm working very, very hard on this. I'm fighting for this because it's a major contribution towards Ukrainian guarantees. And for me, it's a red line. But they're my red lines. The ones that that I impose on myself in my dialogue with my European partners. Now, the second point is the presence on the ground. Yes, we are talking about this. A lot of details have been worked out already about the presence of our partners. Agreements have been made. And as far as the US backstop, we still have to agree with. EU, part of guarantees, we have made some agreements, but some things are slowing down the process, such as Hungary, for example. All of these are important elements, and this policy, of course, makes a major difference.
President, we know that Mr. President Donald Trump is coming to the UK for a second state visit. What message do you have to him?
I very much hope that Prime Minister Starmer will be able to have a very specific discussion on the security guarantees of the United States for Ukraine. Before we end the war, I really want to have all the agreements in place. I want to have a document that is supported by the US and all European partners. This is very important. This is a very motivating thing for the Ukrainian military, so that they realize we will end the war and we will be protected. And to make this happen, we need a clear position of the President Trump. Next, we should be able to buy any weapons, except the nuclear weapons, of course, from the United States. Important weapons, missiles, rockets, etc. For us, this is very important. And the third point strong personal steps made by President Trump to stop Putin. We would like to have full understanding here on this.
Do you have a message to the Russian people?
To Russian? It's difficult to have messages to people without ears. They don't want to hear. They live in their fish tank. It's really, they think that there is their world, by the way, they have the name Russian world, is true, and they think that they can count to bring back all the countries who've been in the Soviet Union, and they think that this is the Russian justice. Yes, to bring back all of them under their rules, and to have this joint country, Russian Empire. And of course, they think that it's right. And what is terrible that young people think the same way. They are young faces, but they are really old people. They are really old Soviet people. My father, he is 77, he is much more younger than 18 years Russian girls and boys. Yes, because they are not free. They think that they live in such world, that the world is like Russia. And this is just like something very strange. So that's why, what to say to them if they don't want to hear? Yes, there is only one thing that, of course, after some years, I don't know when, after some years, yes, of course they will, maybe even they will not understand, but they will have to recognize that Putin destroyed their history, and they will apologize, and their children will apologize, and their grandchildren who didn't fight, they will apologize because of this. And this is a fact, and that's it.
Do your Western allies understand what you understand?
Western allies, I think a lot of Western allies are real allies, and they really understand what's going on. Yes, it's some of them really afraid. I can't even describe you how. Especially countries who are bordering Russia, they're afraid because they know Russians, and they have these roots of this history, and of course they know when Russia was standing, when Russian representatives of their army, of Russian Soviet army, was on their squares, what they did, and of course these countries are really afraid because they really understand what is it, what the price of freedom, what they have now, and how to lose it, and so difficult to get it back. Very difficult. You can wait 30, 50, 70 years, yes. And that's why, of course, they're afraid, and they understand that they need to help Ukraine, because Ukraine is really one country for today, one country who is smaller than Russia, but decided to fight for children and for freedom, because Ukrainians want to be free. It's just in our blood, that's why Ukraine wants to be European. Everybody is asking, why Europe, why not Russia? Because Ukrainians are Europeans. It's difficult to describe why, because they are very free, they love freedom. We love freedom, and etc. And so